Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Sunday and it's November the 18th, 2025. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets, so you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. So feel free to like and to share this video, and don't forget to subscribe. And our story today comes from the city of Fayetteville, right here in North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, "A Green Beret is murdered and dismembered, the Clinton Bonnell story." I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. Now, we celebrated Veterans Day just a few days ago, and I decided that this video I would pay tribute to a fallen veteran, a veteran whose life was ended prematurely. And because of some of the graphic details to be presented in this video, I've decided to add a disclaimer. I want you to know that some of the information presented today could be a bit triggering. So as we travel through this case together, if at any time you begin to feel anxious, I want to encourage you to log off immediately. Keep in mind you can always return at a later date and pick up where you left off. Now, he was a highly decorated Green Beret, a paratrooper, a Special Forces medic, Staff Sergeant Clinton Bonnell, known to his friends at Clint, had recently retired from Fort Bragg here in North Carolina and was in the process of pursuing his post-retirement dream of becoming a physician assistant. It was reported that he was a member of the 2026 physician assistant class at Methodist University here in Fayetteville. Staff Sergeant Bonnell was married, although he and his wife, we discovered later on, they were separated, they were residing in separate households, and we also learned that they were in the process of pursuing a divorce. And as a new retiree, this veteran found himself on a potentially new career path with new friends who had now become a very personal part of his life. And I still remember that first notice of a missing person about 11 months ago. It was in January of 2025. It came on Facebook. The message stated that Clint had not shown up for his class at Methodist University and his friends were trying to reach him. Now, because we're a military town, we respond to these messages with a sense of urgency. And as we often do, we share the message on our social media pages. So the message never pointed a finger at anyone. It just stated he was missing, and for the next few weeks we shared every message, even the notice from the Fayetteville police, as well as the article posted in our local newspaper. Now, there are many things we did not know at the time because Fayetteville Police Department, they handled this case with the utmost secrecy. We did not have much information. In the beginning, it was Clint's girlfriend of 4 months. She was the second person to contact the Fayetteville police and ask for a welfare check. The first one request came from his school because he had missed an exam and they thought it was rather unusual. And then the second request came from his girlfriend of 4 months. And I want to mention her because she has played a pivotal role in this case reaching the level that it has. Her name is Kelly Edwards. And again, if it was not for her and her persistence and her screaming, "Hey, I think we've got a problem," this case probably, it may have advanced, but it may not have advanced as quickly as it did. So let's go through some of the timelines. Kelly last saw him on the evening of January the 27th. He told her he had recently spoken to a divorce attorney, and after that visit, he was heading home. After he left Kelly, he was heading home. When he arrived home, he sent her a message to let her know he was at home, he was tired, and he was going to bed. That was the last communication recorded with him by anyone. Kelly said they were always in contact, so for him now to not respond, That's unusual. And then the following day, which was January the 28th, he missed not just an exam, but he missed an entire day of school. So these were real concerns, concerns that prompted the Fayetteville police to visit his home for that welfare check or that wellness check. This was completed on January the 29th. Police found his cars, they found his keys, they found his wallet, but his cell phone was missing. And you know what was interesting? His wife declined to file a missing persons report. But Kelly, his new girlfriend, said, "Oh no, we're filing a missing person report." And that's exactly what she did. Now, the following day, it was now January the 30th, the information from Clint's cell phone company was revealed. It was reported that the last recorded ping from his phone was the night of January the 27th. It registered him coming home, and later that night, all communication was lost. No data, no GPS activity, nothing. So they felt convinced he never left the house, and it was on that day, 30 January, the case of Clinton Bonnell was transferred to Homicide Division. No explanation given. The police had their suspicion. So police returned to the home the following day to take another look, and they looked at his backpack and his computer. Both showed projectile damage, leading investigators to conclude they may have been the result of a gun being fired. So maybe now police were beginning to zero in on a person of interest. Maybe they were, but they sure weren't saying it out loud. And by then, police had received information that prompted them to expand their search into a neighboring state, Virginia, where Clint's wife had property. So the following day, with the assistance of the Virginia State Police, investigators showed up at her residence in Troy, Virginia, to ask some very pointed questions. She told them she had seen him on the day he was last reported as being seen, which was January the 27th. She said they had argued because of a note she had found from his girlfriend. But that makes no sense because they were both living separate lives. She had another resident and she was in another state, so what does it matter if there's a note from his girlfriend? But she admitted they argued about that note, which she saw, but she still denied knowing anything about his whereabouts. And at the conclusion of that interview, police seized her truck. They searched her truck. They searched her property, and they also seized her cell phone. Those investigators brought back a treasure shed of evidence, which allowed them to pursue additional warrants for local searches. And police used the data they received to put together a better timeline of events regarding the Green Beret's disappearance. It was making more sense now. They most likely already knew what had happened to Clinton Bonnell, but they were just not ready to make it public. Now, by the middle of February, the story was picking up traction, with a few of your major media houses showing interest in the case. The family was desperate for answers. Where was Clint? What happened to him? People just don't disappear like that without a trace. Missing persons posters were visible throughout the community as well as on social media. And I'm sure Clint's family had been asked repeatedly about the possibility that the Green Beret could have taken his own life. The family remained vigilant and they remained firm with their response: no. And by the third week in February, his sister posted a GoFundMe page in which she addressed his disappearance. She also addressed suggestions that he could have possibly taken his own life. And then she asked for help getting funds so that the family could hire a private investigator of their own. And in that GoFundMe summary, this is how his sister addressed the rumors. She began by saying, "Contrary to what you might believe, my brother was not suicidal and would not have abandoned his life. When I saw him in December, he was very happy and excited for his future. Having recently retired from the Army, he was excelling in his studies in the physician assistant program at Methodist University, where he had been appointed president of his class." So that's what she's saying. Forget about it. He didn't take his own life. And then she talked about how the funds would be used. She said proceeds from the fundraiser would be used to establish a reward for his safe return, and additional funds may be allocated to engage the service of a private investigator to enhance their search. And then she kind of slammed the media for suggestions that her brother may have taken his own life, because she saw that as them giving up on him, and she made it clear that she was not going to give up on him and that she would be continuing to look for him. And we weren't hearing anything else from the police, so we assumed the investigation had reached a point of saturation, maybe a standstill, but we could never have imagined what was happening behind the scenes. Imagine our surprise on February the 25th. Headline news. We learned that police were searching a nearby pond looking for a possible connection to our missing Green Beret. Now, they briefly mentioned something about his wife, but were careful to say she was not being identified as a person of interest. By then, we learned that from one of our local news sources that the search for that pond was prompted by a 911 call about human remains in a body of water. That's the pond we just mentioned. The location was approximately 3 miles away from where Clint lived, and because of the condition of the remains, identification was impossible. But people began to suspect that it just might be our missing Green Beret. But investigators would have to wait several more weeks for DNA confirmation, and in doing so, they also needed help from the military DNA data bank where his DNA was on file. The key is everybody would have to wait on the coroner's report. But in the meantime, there was a legal battle that was beginning to take center stage. We learned that Clint's wife, the wife who we have yet to mention by name, we learned that she had filed a case against Clint's parents, asking to have full control over his assets and to be the person to represent him as a missing person. Imagine that. As a reminder, she never wanted to file a missing report in the first place, but all of a sudden, she wants to be the main person in charge of what the public would be able to hear, as well as the person over his entire estate. She wanted to be the person responsible she wanted control over his finances and his property, his cars, his house, and his bank account. And guess what? The courts were gearing up to address this matter because they had tentatively scheduled a date of March the 31st, 2025 at 10 o'clock to resolve that issue. And then there was the worst days of our lives. It had been revealed. There was an identification. The body part found in that pond belonged to a missing Green Beret, Clinton Bonnell. So we knew now Clint was no longer alive, Clint was deceased, and he was murdered. And this is the point at which, if you're easily triggered, you might want to log off or fast forward your viewing. As stated earlier, what police found in that pond was human remains, unidentifiable human remains. To be more specific, it was human remains from a torso, which is the mid portion of a body. It was unclothed. Yes, it was naked. And it was in a state of advanced decomposition. Most of the internal organs were missing. Police did not find the legs or arms or the head. Those key parts of the body was not found in that pond, and they are still missing today. It was revealed that he was shot multiple times. The report states he was shot 4 times in the upper and lower back. Each bullet had exited through his chest area. There were signs of dismemberment with a mechanical saw. But because the body was so decomposed, the medical examiner could not say if additional traumatic injuries were attributed to his death. But he was shot multiple times, his body was cut off, and possibly disposed of in different locations to make sure identification would be difficult or almost impossible. And as the tragic and graphic details were being played across various news circuits, a community was in mourning. The president of Methodist University made the tragic announcement in writing and made sure that students and staff had counselors available to support them in their loss. A traumatic event was being felt across the entire city and neighboring states, and people were beginning to voice their anger openly. What many had been reluctant to say previously was now being echoed loudly. She did it. And shortly thereafter, on March the 28th, 2025, Shana Cloud, the wife of Clinton Bonnell, was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, concealment of a death, and dismemberment. Police believe she killed him the last day he was seen alive, which was January the 27th. Among other incriminating evidence, investigators say they have videos showing Shana Cloud in the area where Clint's body was found. Evidence suggests she had been in the area of the pond. She had stopped there for about 15 minutes and had been approximately 60 feet away from where his body part was discovered. And what else they have uncovered, we really don't know. But she was booked into the Cumberland County Detention Center where her bond was denied. And she has already had at least two court appearances now. The most recent one that's documented was on April the 17th. Apparently, initially she had refused a court-appointed attorney and had hired her own, but that firm that she hired, they came out later and they decided they did not want to continue with her case, so she went back to court on April the 17th, now requesting a court-appointed attorney. So she remains locked up without bond. And this case reminds me so much of another situation. It's been about a little over 5 years with specialist Enrique Roman Martinez, who was beheaded, a paratrooper who was beheaded out in Outer Banks, and his remains were never found. His head was found, but that's about it. And no one has been held accountable today. The difference with this case is at least there's someone who has been arrested. And so we have the tragic discovery of the dismembered remains of a recently retired Green Beret out of Fort Bragg. His wife has now been charged with his murder. Keep in mind, we're still missing his arms, his legs, and his head. Where his body parts, they'll probably most likely now never be found. But his wife has been charged with his murder, and this is a case that's right on our doorsteps, so we'll continue to follow it from start to finish, and we'll bring you updates whenever they become available. And that's all I have for you right now, but feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video, and by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks like just like this one, that's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.